Yo estoy aquí en casa de Yarey con su roommate.
No, casa de Kevin.
En casa de Kevin. En casa de Kevin, que
Sí.
su roommate es Yarey.
No, Jared es roommate de Kevin.
De Kevin.
Es una, ¿cómo se dice? Like
Roommate?
a bum.
What is a boom?
Uh, uh, dormir en un
Okay.
calle.
Yeah. Like a bond.
Sí.
Like a bond. You say
Sí, sí.
bond. Yeah.
Es un bum de Kevin.
So, what do you study?
Estudió Global Studies, Global Affairs, el mundo, problemas del mundo y con
You can talk in English.
Oh,
Because,
really?
yeah.
with poverty and politics and global and geological problems, stuff like that.
Okay. And what university?
I go to the New School University
Okay. In New York? In New York?
Manhattan. Sí.
In Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can like make you a few questions and you tell me whatever you want. What is the meaning for the
Palabra.
African American for you for this word?
Para mí solamente o en inglés.
If you want whatever you want to say, if you what is the meaning for you for this both word in African American and what is the meaning for everyone? What do you think this is the meaning for everyone in here?
It used to be they say black. Black in English also means evil.
Evil.
See, black you say Ew, Byrex.
Byrex, papi, ven acá.
¿Cómo se dice? Magic. You know magic?
Yeah, como magia, como
Magia
voodoo,
magia
negra,
sí.
yeah.
Sí,
I know you.
Black magic.
Black magic. I got you.
Black also means sucia.
Sucio.
Sucio, sí.
So,
Y,
and what other things means black for you?
Oh, no, not para mí, en inglés, like.
¿Inglés?
Sí,
Okay,
sí.
¿qué más significa negro en inglés?
Black, it means it can be evil,
Evil,
dirty.
dirty.
Es una un mala palabra.
Yeah.
So a long time ago they wanted to change it so they don't say black people because it means all those bad things, and white means
Can mean
good
the
things.
other side,
the
yeah.
good things, clean and
Yeah.
wholesome, I guess,
Really the
you
other
know.
side.
So
Really the other side.
they changed to African Americans so that way they didn't. You say black people, it mean African American can only mean one thing. It can only mean people,
Can I mean people?
Mhm.
But can this is mean people who from Africa and living descendant.
Sí,
Descendant?
sí. ¿Cómo es?
Descendiente.
Descendiente.
Don't worry, I got you.
Okay, yeah.
This is African American.
Y también.
Byrex is African American.
Sí.
Do you think that Byrex is African American? Okay, because
Descendiente.
porque él es descendiente. This is mean. But you really not think that you are African American right now?
Yo?
Yeah. Because your family, I think that por 5 generaciones, for 5 generations, detrás de ti, you know that, like,
¿Detrás de ti?
detrás de ti, ¿cómo le digo?
5 generations behind you.
Behind you, your family born in this.
Oh, before me.
Before you, your family born in this, like,
United States, yeah.
in United States. So your family are not direct, like, descendant for
Descendants
Africa.
still.
And your culture and the culture of your family for 5 like generation behind you are like make it in United States with the problems of the United States. What do you think about it?
I think African Americans in the United States are distinct.
Yeah.
Very much distinct from all the other Africans in all over the world, because we are not African and we're not American,
Yeah.
but both. But one without the other is not true. It's not. It doesn't. It doesn't make sense to say one without the other. So I think that it's very distinct, because there is no culture that we brought with us
Yeah.
from Africa. Not like in the Caribbean, where there's a lot of African influence, and in African Americans we don't have any African influence. All of our influence has been what has been passed down from our own ancestors here in the United States. The food that we eat, the way that we dance, the music we listen to, is very much all originated here.
Yeah.
With the African Americans here. So it's to say that we are not African would be not true. To say that we are not American would be not true.
It's not true too.
So the combination is really what's
It's the
important,
word that you think that it ¿cómo se dice? Distinguirte. Distinguish, yeah.
is.
This is the word that you feel that more describe you like a human.
It describes us in a way that if I were to go to Europe, I guess they would say I was American, but I would be an African American.
African.
Because when I was in Iraq, they thought I was from Sudan.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Africa. I'm like, yeah, well, technically, I'm African descent, but I'm from America.
Yeah.
So, you sum it up, you say African American, I guess. It's really a black invented term.
Yeah.
Like, white people they make it seem like we invented the word nigger, like black people invented that, and they invented the word African American, but it's really the opposite,
It's the opposite of nigger.
Yeah, we black people invented and implemented the word African American. We want to be called African Americans is a black thing, not something that white people said. Well, we're going to call you guys African Americans now. It's very steeped in African American culture to be called an African American, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, to me personally, I don't get offended by the word black, even though it has all the other meanings. It doesn't bother me to be called black. Whatever.
And you can describe the distinction that what distinction do you think are between the life in the and the experience of the white woman or white man in this country and your experience like a student, like a black student, like an African American student in New York?
Being an African American in the United States means that that's the most important thing about you. No matter what I do, I'll never be a man without the word black in front of it, or without the word African American in front of it. If you are white, you are a man. That's it. If I say close your eyes and picture a man, picture a white man. If I say close your eyes and you'd have to be specific when you get off of white, So it really feels like you represent more. I'm representing more than just me when I go to school, when I study, when I write papers, when I answer questions in class. It's not just me saying it. It's kind of like me representing all the other black people that are not in class, to say, hey, we're not stupid, we're not lazy, we're not, all these things. We just haven't gotten the opportunity. So now that I have, the opportunity to make something about it. So I think that's much different than when you're white and you don't have to worry about,
nothing.
Anything. It's just you do you.
Because you are a man.
Because you're a man, and
man.
You live and you succeed and you fail. No one is going to say, well, white people are stupid. See, look what this guy, he couldn't even pass this class.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be the same if I fail. It would be like, oh, well, it's expected him to fail because, that's what black people do.
It's a little bit the same in Puerto Rico. And what do you think about your experience in the experience of taking classes with a guy like this? Because by this is not African American total in total way. Because if the people like you and like me see Baires, we can say that Baires is African American at all. So, what do you say about the difference in the experience of Baires, the life of a man like Baires in the United States, and the experience of the men like you and like me? What difference you see?
I
Because-
think that with like you mean Latinos, you mean?
Yeah.
I think that the difference
White
being
Latinos, because I'm Latina,
Okay.
but I'm
See.
black Latina.
I think that there's a nation more behind Latinos. That there's like that. There's more of I don't know. I feel like African Americans are very like we're like nationless people. Like we just and I think that the experience is a little bit different because if you're from Puerto Rico, you can always say I can always go to Puerto Rico where everybody's like me, where everybody is more mixed and more culturally and we don't really have that in a nation. I mean, if you live in America, you can avoid black people. Like you can live places where you never ever have to deal with black people. But black people can never avoid white people. We can never avoid, we can never go to a place where it's a completely black-owned community.
Yeah.
Even the black places here in the United States, in New York City,
You see
there
white people.
are, black people live there, but we don't own the buildings. We don't own the stores. We don't have the jobs. We don't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, but we live there, but that's it. Like, there's nowhere you can go where you don't have to deal with white people. And I feel like if that being Latino, you have a little bit more of a something that unites people in a way that African Americans don't really have that. I mean, for instance, the biggest minority group in the United States now is Latinos, right? But
Not at all. But right now, not at all.
Which,
Pero ahora mismo, no del todo. Like,
see, exactly, right? But you would say, but that's the biggest. Like you say Latinos as if they are all very the same, right?
yeah.
But they're not the same in the fact that they have their own separate nations that they come from.
Yeah.
African American, we don't have that. They're all the same. Like if you're Jamaican and you come here, you lose your mother and father come here, or your parents come here and they have you, and you grow up here. You're no longer Puerto Rican. You're now an African American.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I mean, once you lose like that heritage. Like,
So the Jamaican people are African American here. If born here, from parents like are black, from Jamaica or from Haiti or from Puerto Rico, but his or her parents are black, and you're born in the United States, you just are African American.
Yep. They would say, if you say I'm Jamaican, they would say, well, you don't have an accent. How can you be Jamaican? Your parents are Jamaican. Oh, so you're black, huh? African American.
You are African American. Okay.
Welcome.
Whatever other thing that you can like say, I don't have no one question, but if you want to say something more.
I don't think that it's gonna matter much longer whether or not the skin color. I don't think that. I think that we're gonna reach a point where it's no longer gonna be like the defining characteristic of your life. I don't think. I think that we equate segregation,
Yeah.
and slavery, and as things that happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
But my grandmother was not a slave, but was around in the 1930s and 40s when, you know, this segregation was going on. My grandfather was born in 1925,
Yeah.
you know, and he was in World War II, and then they just, so it's like, they know, they remember a time when, you know, the thought of a black president was not even
possible.
Yeah, they would be like, they would laugh, I would laugh at you, you know, so to see that, to say that we should be there now is kind of crazy, but to say that we can't be there at all is also crazy, because it can happen, you know, but it takes time. I mean, there are a lot of the people who
And work.
not even
work
not so
for
much
that.
work. I think that that it just takes time. I mean, we have to wait for a lot of people to die to get to that point. We have to wait for a lot of people who harbor that, who come from that generation, to no longer be around, you know, because they bring that with them, and a lot of them are still in control. So I think that we'll get there someday, but we may be old by then.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe our children. you
Maybe
know,
our children.
Yeah.
So work with. Thank you, Kev.
No problema.
Acerca del concepto, Byrex me tiene una crítica.
Ok. El concepto del latino
Mm.
no viene desde los diferentes países necesariamente que se consideran latinoamericanos. Sí, pero no desde la perspectiva que él se lo plantea. Está dando su experiencia del latino.
Siéntate aquí si quieres ver. ¡No! Ok.
Close up. Su experiencia del latino en Estados Unidos y como él concibe un latino. Entonces,
En Estados Unidos.
exacto.
Really?
Cuando tú le haces la pregunta respecto a mí.
Él te está viendo como un latino. De hecho, él lo dijo.
Exacto, pero ¿qué pasa? Tú lo corregiste
¿Qué le dije?
y por eso no te contestó la pregunta porque se perdió.
Quizás no se perdió, pero cambié la noción de la pregunta que él iba a contestar
Yo
originalmente.
siento que se perdió.
¿Se perdió?
Sí, porque le diste un choque con respecto a su definición de latino.
Y le incluí a ti como African American, pero es que al
No,
principio...
él me incluye con African American, es otra cosa. Él te está dando de lo que es el latino y tú empiezas a decirle inmediatamente que no es lo mismo o que no somos uno. Entonces él recoge eso porque él lo entiende, pero su forma de entenderlo sigue siendo distinta. Entonces cuando tú estás constantemente cortándolo y lo separas cada vez que habla latino porque a ti te está raro su forma de vernos, su forma de plantearnos, la idea de que tenemos una nacionalidad detrás, de que somos uno, para ti eso no es cierto.
Okay.
Se lo dejaste saber y sé como que bruto, porque para él eso es así.
Okay.
Y de momento pues ya no sabe contestar y pues siguió, no su tangente, se fue en otros aspectos de la pregunta, pero esa pregunta que hiciste no te la puedo contestar porque no los estabas dejando desarrollarse desde las premisas que él entiende que es un latino.
Solo tengo que callarme más la boca y permitir no incluir nociones, mis nociones,
sus nociones,
no corregirle
respecto a
sus
las tuyas,
nociones con
para que
respecto a
puedas
las
estudiar lo que son sus nociones.
Gracias. Gracias. La crítica es totalmente necesaria. Quien crea que no, está loco.
Her definitions of it, and I think you couldn't, the question that she answered, you didn't avoid it, but you took your resources to answer it.
Which question?
Huh?
Which question?
The one about my experience, or your experience of me.
Oh,
Within the question.
What do you
Yeah.
think, about the experience of people like Yarei and Byrex between your experience? He said that when you go to answer that question, I stop you and talk you what I
You
think
mean ask Jade's experience as Puerto Rican or Jade's
as Puerto
experience
Rican.
as
What do you think
homosexual?
about the Latinos?
Huh?
What do you think about the Latinos? Because you are about groups.
Yeah.
What do you think about the
Latinos?
Latinos? Yeah.
I don't know. They're different to me. I think. I mean, like out here, I grew up around like more Puerto Ricans and and Dominicans, Cubans, kind of, And when I went to Colorado, it was a lot more Mexicans. and it was a lot different. It was a lot different. The relationship, not just their difference from Puerto Ricans and Cubans, but also the way that they interacted with the black people around them was much different than the way that we interact with each other here. I think that this, we're us sitting here kind of talking, is not happening that much out west with Mexicans and black people. It's a lot more of a, ¿cómo se dice? In English? I don't know what to say.
I don't want to put words in your mouth there.
I don't know how to say it, but it's a lot more volatile.
Okay.
Between the two groups, and a lot more racial dynamic. But I think that a lot more Puerto Ricans and Cubans see themselves as people who are not necessarily black, but have that influence. I mean that you can't deny. Even Dominicans. Some of them, they look like me, and they say they're not black. I'm Dominican. But you can't deny that there is some influence, that there's some African influence, and Mexicans don't really have that. So I mean, it really feels like there are different groups of Latinos, but it's not something that you realize unless you interact with people from different places. But I think that, like I said before, you can, as much as they say the United States is a melting pot, they don't mean for us. They mean for white people, it's a melting pot.
Okay.
If you're Italian and you come here, and a generation later you can be white, you can just be American, or if you're from Ireland or from somewhere in Europe, you can come here after a generation and just be American and just kind of melt in.
The melting pot between the European countries.
But
so
for us,
I'm Irish, Italian, and German. I'm a mutt,
But for us, it's very different. We never quite assimilate into that. We never kind of assimilate. So I think that it's, like I said, as much as it's a melting pot, it's very easy for white people to avoid us and avoid seeing us as individuals, and instead be able to group everybody together, in ways that most people don't see themselves that way, but yeah.
Describe white people. What does that mean? White people. To you, and then to
people,
Yare, what do you?
Oh, I don't know. White people, it really means people who are European.
It's people who are viewed as quintessentially American, without necessarily having
or European.
But I mean, we're talking about white people in the United States, white people as a general, like everywhere around the world. I mean, white people is essentially the normality, the norm. Western civilization is essentially white. It's what we see. Whether they know it or not. I mean, if you ask somebody to picture, or even me, an all-American guy, you don't usually picture me or Kevin, for example.
I picture me.
Kevin, all-American. Usually all-American guy is, like Sarah Palin, Joe Sixpack, real Americans. Sabe, the all-American guy is the one who's just, basically well-fit, build, white, non-threatening, quote-unquote. I mean, if you say, like, even I would laugh, this is all-American guy, and he comes out and his name's like, Ching Hao,
Whatever.
It's like, yeah, okay, I guess. I mean, no one really thought, Which actually was interesting when I went to Europe. Was I was American.
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, you're American. Okay, yeah, that's what my passport says. But I mean, when I was in the United States, I mean, sure, they could see, sure, I'm an American, I'm Puerto Rican American, or Latino American, I'm some kind of hyphenation American, or yeah, you're American, but where are you really from? Or okay, or where did your ancestors come? I mean, it's not like the first thing they'll see would be, oh, I think I'm American.
Okay.
Well, in Europe, when I went there, they hear me speaking in English, which I guess here I have an accent, but over there, when I'm in Europe, oh, you sound so American. You sound so New York or which that took a while for me to get used to. Like, yeah, I'm American. Okay, that's interesting.
And when you go to Puerto Rico, you're white.
Yeah, I get a pretty dark tan, but yeah.
When you go to Puerto Rico, you are white. So what do you think about it? About the difference of your opportunities in Puerto Rico between your opportunities in United States.
Well, I mean, in Puerto Rico, there's not much opportunities really. I mean,
life.
sure, I'll have better opportunities que tú sabes alguien que se parece como a ti, siendo hombre y también siendo mucho más blanquito.
Como yo.
Yeah, exactly. ¿Sabes? I mean, eso obvio. You know, I mean, pero en Estados Unidos, también claro, I mean, because then you get into the issue of colorism.
Yeah.
Que uno dice que there's also, I mean, racial animosity within even one's own group. I mean, como Estados Unidos, light-skinned black folks,
Yeah.
on average, tend to do much better economically, tend to make more money, tend to be in usually much more higher positions of power. I mean, you can look at what, speaking about Obama, he's light-skinned Negro, he's light-skinned with no Negro dialect. You sabe, I mean, if Obama, I guess, didn't speak so articulate, you know?
Yeah.
O como sea, and if he would have been much darker skinned, también would have been viewed more threatening. O.J. Simpson, when there was the whole case, they darkened his skin to make him look scarier. Y Latinos también, lighter skinned Latinos do far better than darker skinned Latinos. Teléfono. But I mean, for that, in that case, then we get into like different. We get in the case of I mean, yeah, light skinned folks. We're pretty much in all racial aspects, whether being Latino or being dark, or igual in Indians, from Hindus.
Yeah.
Same thing too. Lighter skin is much more. I mean, they buy whitening skin products, things like that. And in India, you see that really very a lot.
Yeah.
I see it's very obvious and very pronounced. You know, you're light skinned, and they're really obvious about. Oh, I hate my dark skin. They don't want to tan. They want to get really light. I mean, so we see that in pretty much any racial group in Estados Unidos.
Yeah.
Because people of color, you know, the preferred, okay, you're a person of color, but you're a light person. You know, that's much more preferred. For example, we had, like, even among black folks, something I think it was called Blue Vein Society.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I guess you're essentially known as black. But the only way you can be accepted is if you're really white-skinned black. I'm talking about white-skinned, whiter than me, like you can see your veins.
Yeah.
But you're black. But that's how you can get in that society. You know, and I mean, and I think Kevin was talking about Jamaicans too earlier. Sometimes darker skinned Jamaicans don't like lighter skinned Jamaicans and vice versa. They don't trust each other. But in the United States, I mean, for example, was Marcus Garvey? I mean, I think when he came to the United States, from Jamaica, when he came to the United States, he had kind of an issue with lighter skinned black folks that didn't really, and they were like, what are you talking about? The United States, we're all black. So it's not really that. I mean, there's a distinction, but I mean, you know, they'll call you a nigger, they'll hang you regardless, whether you're light skinned black or dark skinned black.
Okay.
But in Jamaica, there was, you can see that racial dynamic también.
Okay.
La República Dominicana también.
Sí,
Puerto Rico también. You know, all those places. You know, in the United States also lighter skinned folks. India, como te dije, so. It's not something que it's just in the Latino community per se. Oh, you're light skinned Latino.
Solamente,
you know,
colonization, places that have been colonized, because you don't really see that, like
colonized
least,
with color.
Huh?
No.
Colonized.
Sigue.
I mean, I don't really see that in places that have never been colonized, like dark skinned, like Chinese people don't really see a real difference between themselves and, you know, someone who is lighter skinned. However, when they come to the United States, there's a difference, you know, between somebody from southeastern, you know, Vietnam versus somebody from, you know, Japan.
Even Asian groups,
know.
Filipinos,
But I mean,
Cambodians,
well,
darker skinned.
those they've been colonized,
they're lower,
but they've been colonized, and when they come here is where there's like a real you know, difference, where you see the difference in equality. But I think that it's mostly that it's a very white influence, where you're being colonized by people who say, and that buffer zone has always been there between, like, the middle people, you know, the people who are not quite, you know, you don't want them marrying your daughter, but you don't mind if they live in your neighborhood, you know, that kind of difference, you know, so.
Make you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Or it's like, it's light enough, make you feel comfortable, kind of thing. Because it also depends on where you go. I mean, next to you guys, o sea, soy bien blanquito. But when I went to Europe, for example, I mean, they didn't see me as black, but they certainly didn't see me as white. Tampoco. I mean, they don't have it how we have it here, where it's very distinctive white. But I mean, obviously, I was still the other. I mean, I wasn't put European.
Yeah.
Como tal. I mean, if interesting, I mean, even in Europe, you can even see some of the colorism. For example, Southern Europe, son un poquito más oscuro. Italia, Italy, Greece, Spain. A lot of times they're a little bit darker. I mean, there's kind of a distinction between those two. I mean, because in Europe they don't really go, oh, we're the white race, to how, yeah. But you know, I mean, it's more about country oriented folks. I mean, sure, okay, like Carolina would tell me, like she would get mad if I say European, for example. Well, that's a bunch of different countries. She goes, if you can say Scandinavian, okay, Finland, they're essentially the same, but they would look at themselves very different. And sometimes, you know, it would be kind of ambiguity, like, what do you consider Turks? Or, because Turks in Sweden, for example, they were like our Mexicans, you know? Those Turks. You wouldn't say the United States. So those Turks. What?
Yeah.
You know? Those Mexicans always coming here.
Yeah.
They're Turks. And I mean, in some aspects they could be viewed as white, part of Europe, but other aspects, I mean, they're Muslim, they have darker skin, some of them. So it's... Yeah, they become not quite white, which actually happened in the United States too, a little bit. When new arrivals came in, they weren't coming in from Scandinavia. A lot of times they were coming in from Italy. They were Jews. So I mean, they were white, but they weren't really, you know, like real whites. They were maybe like como negro de casa, you know. Yeah. Oh, they were like they were like the blacks of the white folks. So, I mean, they were better. They were white, pero, you know, not really. So, and then as the more and more it started coming in, they became integrated in society, and then now they became white. You know, and that's where the melting pot happens now.
Yeah.
It's this diverse mix of all different creeds and peoples from Europe.
Well, Europe, I think, really divided the world how it saw fit. I think, watch it. It really divided, like, you know, like the way they divvied up Africa to be, you know, these different nations that would never have been if it wasn't for European influence. The way they divided up the land, and I think that one of the biggest questions of race in the world today has been the division between Europe and Asia, which is the same continent. If you look at it, it's the same continent. Where's the division? Where does the line go? If I point to Africa on the map, you can see where it's different from South America, where South America is different from North America, where it's different from Europe. But where's the division between Europe and Asia? Nobody knows. Nobody knows because there's parts of Russia in Asia, but are Russians Asian? Turkey is on Europe and Asia, technically, but are they Europeans or are they Asian? You see, I mean, that distinction is something that is not real. It's a very political line that's been drawn, and it's very drawn by the othering of these people who, you know, the only real difference, I mean, besides some, you know, of course, culturally they're different, but I'm saying, like, the biggest difference is the fact that they look different. Yeah. Because there's a huge cultural difference at a time in this division between Greece and Italy and France and, you know, England, you know. I mean, there was a very different culture. And there's a different culture from Asia, but the biggest difference is the fact that people look different. Yeah. So they drew this line and said, okay, those people are from another continent. Not those people are from over there. They're from a whole other continent. So they're not even on the same landmass as we are. Which, what do you mean? How does that makes no sense. You know, but it's something that we've kept all this time.
And even like we had racial scientists. If we look at what the races we have, what we consider race today, even still that's kind of ambiguous. We usually have four main ones. You know, sometimes 3, 4. But Negroid they would call blacks, Europeans, European, Asians for Asia, and the natives, indigenous, La America. Those are usually the 4 racial categories. Right now, in what we consider 4 racial groups. Yeah. Other things come like they're ambiguous, they're in between. They kind of, you know, I guess they fall under Asians. And even among Asians, to look at Indians, look at Chinese, look at Japanese. Yeah, you can put them a lot of times in different races. But I mean, it's this whole blocking of 4 major groups. But before, when they had racial studies,
there's 5 now.
I mean, there's 5 now?
Middle Eastern is on
Actually, I think they're still considered under European. When it comes to genetic studies, they're still considered European.
They're actually like the Middle East is growing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the Middle East used to be.
But I mean,
now Afghanistan is.
Yeah.
You say Afghanistan's in the Middle East, it's like in the middle of Asia.
Yeah.
You know, and now Morocco.
But I mean, those people.
It's like the Middle East spans 3 continents now. It's like it's getting bigger and bigger.
Those people who kind of fall in that kind of ambiguous category. But I mean, as of right now, the census, if you put Arabic, they would categorize you as white. You know, I see people Arabic who light skin or darker than you, but they're Arabic.
Who make these categories? Because you say people that are Arabic. Does the
United States in the census, they would be considered white, and even still, even like when you have those genetic scientists trying to figure out racial origin, things like that. When they say you have this amount of European, when you look, okay, well, what is European or what is white, what is looks, it encompasses Europe and the Middle East.
Okay.
So I mean, and what I was trying to get before when they were doing racial studies. It was a lot more different racial categories. There was so much, it was ridiculous. It was like, I mean, now I think we have too little, it's ridiculous. But, now, I mean, if you consider race, but...
Why ridiculous?
Because any kind of, basically it was more based on the nation, what country you were from. Your French race is different than Swedish race. And they would have charts and what's the typical characteristic, like of a Jewish person was a different race. Big time. I mean, you have you can see like racial charts from back in the day, eugenics movement. I mean, you had lists just like 30, 40, 50 pages of like different groups of people from, and I mean, or for example, now we have things with race and intelligence, and they're doing a lot of those studies, and I mean, those studies have been going on for a while, and I mean, for example, it depends who you did. If you had a French group of people who did it, they would find that actually the French race was the smartest race. And then, you had a Swedish group of people who would do another racial study. No, actually, no, we disproved that. Actually, we found that this is a Swedish race. It's actually the smartest group of people. And it goes on and on and on. So pretty much, I mean, basically, in the end, race is those who have the power to determine what they can and choose it to be when it benefits them. So Latinos right now, before, they're people of color. But in the census now, well, you're Hispanic, you can be of any race. You have to choose between... Specifically, Hispanic is not a race. You cannot choose that. You have the right to self-identify, but not Hispanic.
Okay.
So you have to pick a specific racial category.
Is there a census in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, there's census in Puerto Rico.
What do they put there?
También igual...
What in 2000? In 2000.
In
2010 was the last one.
Yeah, 2010 was the last one.
No. But after 2010... We have a other one. I don't remember the specific year, but the Puerto Rican people put the whites.
Yeah, 75%.
Really?
In 2000, it went down a little bit. In 1980, I mean 1980, 2000, it was about 80%. Puerto Ricans put white. I think there's some criticism about that, so now it went down to 75%.
But how many?
But actually, if you look back at census,
from
different years in Puerto Rico. I mean, first of all, there's always been, like United States, mulatto used to be a category in the census. Mexican was a specific racial category.
Now it's other.
No, now what happened was LULAC was like, no, Mexicans are white, they're not their own specific race, so they took it out. Mulatto was specific. Even quadroon and octroon. Quadroon was if you were fourth black. Octroon, an eighth black. So, okay, we had all those different kind of groups. Like Native Americans, for example, to be federally recognized as Native American, you have to be at least 25% for that.
Yeah.
So you have to have at least one grandparent.
Yeah.
Si no, pues entonces you can't claim it. So I mean, for different groups of people, there's what you can have and what you can't. But the interesting thing is the only group that's never changed, it's always been there in the census from day one, is white
and black.
And white.
And black, yeah.
Because
because there also was slavery, and then they actually write black, they wrote slave.
But
in census, or sometimes blacks are even counted in the census too, as well. So they weren't always there. They were there for a long time too. But whites are the one that hasn't changed. And Puerto Rico has been the same thing too.
Okay,
I mean,
mira,
for example,
ahora que están tocando la puerta, tú vives at where you born, and where you live right now.
Where do I live right now?
Yeah,
In the Bronx.
and where you live, and where you born
I was born in Brooklyn.
in Brooklyn.
Yeah, but I grew up upstate actually.
Okay, that's
There's
good.
like a lot of 3 different distinctions that don't really mean anything if I were to leave New York State or to go. What's it? Is that mine?
That's mine. Yeah, I am.
Or to go somewhere else. But you know, here it's kind of like everything gets very specific in the same way that we were talking about race getting very specific. You know, if I were to say, oh, I live in New York, they would say, oh, where in New York? Oh, New York City. Where in New York City? Oh, the Bronx. Oh, where in the Bronx? Fordham. Oh, where in Fordham? You know, I mean, it gets very,
Okay.
You know, yeah, it's very specific here. So.
And Jare, you born in the United States or you're born in
Puerto
Puerto
Rico.
Rico? And you lived for how much time in the United States?
De que tenía 5 years old, I was 5, more or less. I mean, I go back and forth to Puerto Rico,
Okay.
but lived for a while.
Tocan a la puerta, llega el cartero con una carita feliz de Amazon y trae esto.
What we're talking.
Entonces yo pregunto que qué es, ¿verdad? Y este caballero empieza a contestar.
No.
Talk about it.
Jim Crow.
No.
Give the editor short version, man.
Pregúntale a ellos qué es Jim Crow, ya que están...
¿Qué es Jim Crow?
Jim Crow was the laws that were passed, especially in the South, the southern part of the United States, you know, south of Virginia, that regulated what black people could and could not do. Mostly could not, and this is they ended officially in 1965, right? That was the end of Jim Crow, but the end of Jim Crow, as in the what they say is
official overtly into
yeah,
law.
Well,
you can't do it.
it was mostly what black people cannot do. Black people you could have laws that say if you have a restaurant, it could say whites only, which means no black people allowed in the restaurant.
Okay.
Or for instance, it's illegal for a black man to be seen with a white woman. You know, things like that regulated what black people could and mostly could not do. And a black police officer, for instance, could not arrest a white man, but a white police officer could arrest a black man. You know, and black people were only allowed to arrest other black people. Other black police officers were only allowed to arrest other black people. That was Jim Crow, and it ended in 1965, where they said you can no longer make laws that.
Or voting laws.
Voting laws. You could only vote if, like, say they would ask you a question about, you know, if you come to vote, they say, okay, well, they'll ask you a question if you're.
Well, that was a little before though, because remember that they had overt laws that said black people can't vote. Or then they say, well, you really can't. Or then they would try to fight and say, okay, well, you really can't have that. It's unconstitutional. Or they would have a law say, oh, well, the grandfather clause. If your grandfather could vote, then you can vote. But a lot of black folks, grandfathers were slaves, so they couldn't vote, so you can't vote. They said, okay, well, you can't do that. You have to let black folks vote. They said, okay. We're just going to have a poll test to make sure you're competent to vote. You know, to make sure, you know, so a white person would come in. Well, what country are you in? United States of America. Okay, you can vote. The black person would come in. How many bars? I mean, how many bubbles are in a bar of soap? You know, or what's the first sentence in the second article of the Constitution of Virginia regulating alcohol?
Commerce.
Yeah, commerce. Or some crazy thing like that. You know, we're like, what? Where no white person would ever be able to answer. You know, and they said, oh, well, you couldn't answer. You couldn't vote. And I mean, actually, that happened once where they actually asked a black constitutional scholar that question, and he knew it and he answered it. And they still said, oh, you still can't vote. They still didn't let him vote. I mean, that's kind of just quick in a nutshell.
It was also laws that regulated where black people could live. They can't live after World War II. There was they paved a lot of land that used to be farmland or like potato crops and things like that, and they moved all this stuff in order to build houses specifically for white people to move into to get out of the cities. And there was redlining laws that said that black people can't cross this line, that this is the area where, you know, black people are allowed to live in the city. And what happened was that since the end of Jim Crow, there has been colorblind. The term's been used. The colorblind. Colorblind. We don't. It's so colorblind.
We don't see-
Colorblind racism means it's not about your race. It's about something about your race that we don't like.
Yeah.
You know, in other words,
Yeah.
when they were integrating neighborhoods
Beautiful.
in the suburbs, they would say things like, we don't want. It's not that we don't think that black people should be able to move in our neighborhood. You know, it's not that we don't think they should. They should be able to live wherever they want to. They should be free to choose. They're Americans. They just can't live here. Here's just not a good place for them to live. You
They
know,
wouldn't
I mean,
like it.
yeah, here
It
they
was-
wouldn't like it.
They help them.
Yeah,
You know.
I mean, if they have, it's not going to be good for them. They're going to be the only ones. I
Then
mean,
they're gonna keep having kids, you know, and then they're gonna move, and they're basically scared that it'll make it into a black neighborhood, the ghetto.
so the new Jim Crow, or like colorblind, the new colorblind laws, in other words, are designed to say it's not about their race,
I mean-
but have the same effect that Jim Crow had, but without
Yeah.
saying, okay, this is specifically for black people. In other words, instead of saying black people cannot vote, they say if you have a criminal record, you can't vote. And they've made the laws so that it's easier to.
But they only prosecute black folks, so the only
Mhm.
people who have. For example, I read the book. You didn't read.
You listen to the book.
I listened to it. I'll do a book. You said I could say read it after, and then now you change it. The way
You had an exposition
I
to the
yeah.
book.
The whole book was read to me. Basically, it's okay. We don't have those laws anymore where you can't vote if you're black, essentially, on paper. But we have new laws that don't say that. But those new laws had the same effect. I mean, right now there's actually more black people who can't vote in many states legally than what we had in Jim Crow.
On the same thing in the Bush and the George Bush, not John Kerry, it was Al Gore election in 2000. They went through and they found a lot of people with criminal records who, of course, were black. And they didn't allow them to vote in Florida because
people even who were black,
but
who didn't have a criminal record,
who had similar names to somebody who had a criminal record, and they always just a kind of mix up.
Yeah,
we thought you were somebody else. That's why we couldn't allow you to vote and things like that because of the fear that they would vote for Al Gore and allow him to win.
And if that would have happened, he would have won Florida without a doubt, and he would have been the president. I mean,
for better or for worse.
And what do you-
But basically, the main emphasis, though, the main emphasis of the new Jim Crow, we're specifically talking about the drug war.
The what?
The drug war.
The war on drugs.
The war on drugs. The drug. The war drug. The war drug. The drug on war. The drug on. The war on drugs.
That's drug on.
Yeah. Where basically, I mean, you could just go and there's a black person running there. Hey, let's beat him up, whatever. You can do that before. With the new Jim Crow, basically, we can't just get him because he's black now, but we can beat that black man just because. Basically, you go to a neighborhood, stop and frisk. Oh, he has drugs. Let's go check him out. Let's search him and to see if he has any drugs. And sometimes there's been many, many cases where cops have been caught planting drugs on people.
Yeah.
You know, singing the little things. And basically, if you get prosecuted with, like, let's say, for example, marijuana or crack, I mean, you can even for a first-time offense, you can be in prison up to 7 years. And then you have a criminal record for life. If you have a criminal record for life, many states don't let you vote if you have a felony. And if you have a felony, you pretty much can't get a job. I mean, you can say, oh, no, we can hire a criminal. I mean, but once you put, you have a felony, even if it's something simple, drugs or whatever, a long time ago, you won't get a job. And what's interesting is, too, the fact that study after study after studies have been done, that the people who most often tend to use drugs are white folks. And one of the drugs that they may tend to use is cocaine, for example. Where black folks tend to use crack is what they're labeled as using. And if you get caught with cocaine or crack, the sentencing for crack is 100 times harder than it is for cocaine. So if you get caught with cocaine, you get 2 days in jail. You get caught with crack, you get 200 days in jail. Even though there's no physical or pharmaceutical, they can't find any kind of difference between the two drugs in the sense of, which one's worse, which one's...
They're the same drug.
Exactly, the position the same drug. And that they only specifically go, particularly, to communities of color, particularly Black and
If
Latino
you drive,
communities.
if you drive around, if you were to drive around today, and you walk around, if you walk down the Upper West Side or Union Square, I guarantee you'll see more cops walking from here to the train
Yeah.
than you will once you get down to Manhattan in your Union Square area. You'll see
Okay.
more cops walking here. When you go to black places like Bed-Stuy, when you go to Brownsville, you're going to see a lot more. I drove through Brownsville one time, and my car is painted 2 different colors.
Okay.
And there was cops on every single corner, and they pulled me over. And I had my mom in the car, and they took me out of the car, and they were, wondering where I'm going, and blah blah. And they tried to make it seem, because here in New York you put the registration on the window, and I had just gotten registered, so I didn't know that I had it in the thing. But they never asked me for my registration. They just asked me for my license. They took me out of the car, and they said, "Well, your car's not even registered." I said, "Yeah, there's the registration's in the thing." They're like, "Oh, it's supposed to be on the window." I'm like, "Oh, I'll grab it." So I grab it and I show it to them. Then they go to the car and they come back and they're like, "All right, you can go. Just make sure you put that on
7
the window."
seconds.
All right.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Peace.
Peace.
I gotta put the...
Ya.
Aquí. Ese
Como-
canto, eso.
Sí.